All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division, where Errol Spence Jr. let something be known to the public, which is that he is still going to get the Terence Crawford rematch. This little bit before Terence Crawford let it be known that he was trying to fight Tszyu, which more than likely is a mind game. At least that's the way that I'm reading it. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Because why not, man? I want to talk about these big fights that take place in the United States because I've spent a lot of time in my retirement on Twitter reading what people have to say about American boxing. These stories that people are concocting about Saudi Arabia taking over American boxing and taking over the world of boxing, and the big fights that we want to see not taking place in the United States, taking place in Saudi Arabia. And I thought to myself, what big fights are not taking place in the United States that would normally take place in the United States? And I thought to myself, well, what have the biggest fights been over the last year? Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo, and of course, Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. And all three of those fights, which were the biggest three fights of 2023, all took place in the United States. And what fights took place in Saudi Arabia? Refresh my memory, but I think the big one was Tyson Fury and a UFC fighter, and a big card of heavyweights, none of which included any actual belts on the line. Which brought me around to, look, man, I need to see some more big fights in the United States. And of course, the ones that were scheduled for this year that it looks like may not take place is the Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford fight, because Terence Crawford says that he is targeting Tszyu. He also said that he's glad that everything's behind him, not trying to make this fight with Errol Spence. Errol Spence responds, get out your feelings. Let's run it back. Clearly, Errol Spence Jr. says, I've had some injuries. I'm ready to run the fight back. Terence Crawford is saying he doesn't want to do it. Big problem, though. Terence Crawford says that he wants to fight Tszyu. Tszyu, last I checked, said he wasn't interested in Terence Crawford, if I recall correctly, and said that if he was forced to fight somebody else for that WBO belt, that he wouldn't take the fight, that he would wait to get the fight with Jermell Charlo, because Jermell Charlo was the person whom he has been planning and aiming at fighting for several years, and he wouldn't even feel like he was a champion for the WBO if he didn't fight Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo, of course, has some legal hangups, obviously, so we don't know for sure when he's going to be back, how that is going to play out for him, but just assume that it plays out. There goes the Tszyu fight, and Tszyu said he would be willing to drop the belt. Other thing, Tszyu is advised by Al Heyman and fights for the PBC, for the PBC. All of the opportunities that he's had in his career, big ones, have come from the PBC, and I'm sure he's part of this Amazon rollout that should be coming pretty soon. So where exactly is a fight with Terence Crawford going to fit on that if the PBC and Al Heyman are going to work with Errol Spence Jr. to get the Terence Crawford fight? I don't really know how that's going to play out. Now, I do not believe, on the other hand, though, just from the outside looking in, that it's going to be a contractual issue that ties Terence Crawford to that fight with Errol Spence Jr. I think it's going to be, if anything, it's going to be a money issue that ties him to that fight with Errol Spence. The fight with Terence Crawford and Tszyu, for Tszyu, is not necessarily the most lucrative fight in the world for him, because Terence Crawford he's not with the promoter that's going to bring big money to the table to get Tszyu into the ring with Terence Crawford. It seems to me that the biggest interest fight for Terence Crawford is still Errol Spence Jr. Now, some people say they want to see it. Some people say they don't want to see it. I'm going to go back to the original portion of my, when I talked about why I want to see these fights. I'm just a little bit tired of all of this phony baloney stuff, man, going on in boxing. And I'm just going to be dead serious with you. Shout out to Pull Out Bandit. Brother, I had to block you. Pull Out Bandit said something to me where he said, I was talking about Bill Haney and Adrian Broner and Devin Haney, and was very irritated that this conversation was going on about how Adrian Broner wouldn't fight Devin Haney because he was scared of Devin Haney. Went through this conversation in these live streams quite often, and it's all about a bunch of nothing, right? Like, all about a bunch of nothing for fights that ain't going to happen. At the very least, you know, if we're going to have boxing channels and talk about boxing, at least we can talk about some things that are real. Terence Crawford actually did fight Errol Spence Jr. and actually did beat up Errol Spence Jr. And Errol Spence Jr. actually does want to run the rematch, and their rematch absolutely can take place with no problems. More than likely, the PBC will be able to hold the fight. But no, we don't get to do that. We get to hear excuses like why the fight with Jaron Ennis and Terence Crawford can't take place because Jaron Ennis doesn't have a network. As if Terence Crawford has a network, or Errol Spence Jr. has a network. If you listen to what people are saying half the time, who are acting as if the Amazon Prime deal is not going to come through, or it's not going to start just because today is the 17th day of January and they've not already had 5 fights. Look, I'll take the fight with Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. I'll take the fight with Terence Crawford and Tszyu. I'll take the fight with I'll take a fight with Jaron Ennis and Errol Spence Jr. I'll take a fight with Tszyu and Errol Spence Jr. As long as these guys actually get in there and fight, and hopefully they do it at least twice, I would take 3 times in 2023, because look, man, I have a selfish interest in being able to see fights and actually on the channel talk about fights that are taking place. Going back a little bit into this conversation about how the Saudi Arabia, the sheikh, or I'm not sure, is he a sheikh from Saudi Arabia, is taking over the world of boxing, when I don't really see. I saw one good card. I saw one good card from them, and that is the only ones that I can really think of. Now, I do believe that they are going to get fights that typically could not take place in the United States, like Dmitry Bivol and Arthur Beterbiev. Those are big fights. Those aren't, first of all, it's not a big fight in the United States. That fight right there, Arthur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, may not sell out Madison Square Garden. That would probably be, is it the Hulu Theater in New York? That's probably going to be in a theater. It's a big fight to the extent that it is a really good fight with the 2 best light heavyweights in the world. But you at 115 pounds, we had 2 of the best 115 pounders fight in Texas between Bam Rodriguez and Sonny Edwards, and that wasn't a big fight. Look, I want Terence Crawford to take whatever fight he takes. Let's hurry up and get it done, or I hope he hurry up and gets it done. Errol Spence Jr. said he's not retiring, so let's get his fight set and get this fight here going, so we can stop talking. Believe you me, Pull Out Bandit, I want to stop talking about incidental things like big stories being made up about $40 million being available for Matchroom for a Gervonta Davis Devin Haney fight, or Sheikh Abdullah, I don't know what his name is, please forgive me, saying, people just making up that he's got $500 million for Gervonta. His stuff is ridiculous. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.